might call you king high right now.
You have king high?
Yeah.
Yo, look, I ain't saying that I'm rich, cause if I'm honest, I've never been. But when I look at all these other kids, I feel just a little bit ahead of them. You should know the business is competitive. There's a lot of people that I'm better than. Even veterans ain't got the knowledge I do. I've been reinvesting all I ever spent.
All right, Empire, welcome back to another episode of Vader Poker, episode 5, Force Choked by the River. And the title is exactly what happens. We get force choked hard by the river, and not in a good way.
That's what she said.
Michael, please. Please.
So I think you'll like this episode. It's actually my first losing session while vlogging, and I thought it was important to show you the losing sessions that I have. You know, it's important, obviously, to show the wins, and those are fun, and everybody loves those, but the reality is nobody wins 100% of the time. It's impossible. So if somebody tells you they're winning 100% of the time, they're a liar. So nobody wins 100%, so it's important to show you the losses, and that's what I'm doing here. I've actually had a couple of losing sessions before, one of which was when Rob from Team 100K was in town, and the Team 100K pros here in Dallas, we all got together to hang out with Rob, have a couple drinks at Big Daddy's Cantina in Grapevine Lake, which was a lot of fun, ate some food there, had a cocktail or two while we were discussing the future of Team 100K and where it's going, and hopefully some exciting things coming by the end of the summer. We will see. Stay tuned, hopefully, for some big news from Team 100K. But can't let the cat out of the bag. Nothing's finalized. We'll see what happens. And the rest of the guys decided to go watch the NCAA basketball championship. I foolishly should have went with them, but did not. I went to go play a session and ended up losing about a half a buy-in or something. Nothing crazy, but I only played maybe an hour, hour and a half. Definitely not enough hands to justify making a vlog out of it. So this losing session, I do have quite a few hands to show you. Definitely some mistakes I made, so I think that's important to show you as well. I don't always make the right decision. Nobody does. So it's important to show you the mistakes. So we got that in this episode as well. So I hope you enjoy it. We're starting our bankroll this episode with 5,600. Where will it end up? You're going to have to watch and find out. Wish me luck. Enjoy. We are headed back to TCH Social. It's Sunday, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a late night last night. We didn't get done playing until about 12, didn't get home until like 12:31. There was a ton of traffic on the highway. It was just a bit nutty. But now we're heading back. We've got a couple of the Team 100K pros, Craig and VA Venom, Jay, are at TCH Social. They're playing right now. They're already building their stacks, so we're missing out. It's time to get going. I want to have some consistent, book 5 wins in a row, something like that. I had a good discussion with some of the Team 100K pros yesterday in chat about leaving sometimes when you are up. Like if you're up 4 buy-ins, 5 buy-ins, then it makes sense just to leave, when you're up, if it's early in the session. It's pretty rare that you're going to have a session where you're, taking in 3, 4, or 5 buy-ins. So when you get to that point, there's nothing wrong with either cutting the session short or picking up, taking a break, and starting a new session at the max buy-in at that level. That way, if you lose that, it's not as big of a deal as if you lose, all the work you did when you built up to 3 or 4 or 5 buy-ins. And then as this game can go, just comes crashing down. That's the lesson for today. We got a nice little 30-minute drive, but you know how we do. Time to grind. First hand at the table. We had just finished setting up, so we weren't really paying much attention and didn't realize that it was a straddled pot. So when it gets to us after one person limps, we look down at ace-6 offsuit, and in the small blind for $1, it's worth a limp. So we decide to limp. However, it's $5. Come on, guys, get it together, right? So of course, now we're going to throw in the extra 3. We've already put in 2, so why not, right? The small blind calls, and the straddler decides to check his option. So we're going to this flop 4-handed. Not a problem, right? Hey, and it comes pretty good for us, actually. It comes ace, king, 8 with 2 spades. So again, not a bad board for us. Not a lot of ace like 10s limp in, ace jacks, ace queens, things like that. So unless they have like, ace 7, ace 8 already beats us, we're in pretty good shape here. So we decide to lead out. Everybody folds, and we win our first hand at the table. Hey, good start to the session. In this next hand, we have one limper, and the button, a young Jedi-looking foe, decides to raise it to $12. And because he's a young Jedi, he certainly could be raising light here. And we look down at King-Queen offsuit. Pretty good hand for the situation. So I think this warrants a 3-bet. I don't really want to call and have, the big blind call, and then of course the limper call, and now we're out of position four-handed, with king-queen offsuit. So I think a 3-bet to $46 makes a lot of sense here. Actually, one could go bigger here, and I think you could make an argument that I should have made it about 50 to 55 since there already was a limper, but alas, we make it 46, and the button decides to make the call. So we're going heads up to the flop. So the flop doesn't come super great for our particular hand, but does come great for our 3-betting range. It comes ace, ace, 10, once again with 2 spades. I guess there's a little bit of a spades theme going on here. So it's definitely a good board for us as a 3-better, so we're going to lead out. We have a gut shot. We probably have overs if they have like 6s or something like that. So I bet a 3rd pot here. You could also make an argument in this hand for betting larger. We are heads up, and heads up I typically bet around half pot or so. We have all the ace kings, ace queens, things like that, aces, kings, queens, yada yada, and we block some of those hands too. So we could have bet larger, but we bet a 3rd. He calls. The turn is a brick. It's a 4 of diamonds, and we only have about 1 stack to pot ratio here. We're about actually like a 150, and the pot's at 160 or so. So I think it makes sense here just to rip it. It's either check, fold, or we're ripping it in this point. So we go ahead and rip it all in, and our opponent snap folds. Pretty sure our opponent was just, trying to freeze us on the flop, see what we would do on the turn. And it looks like we were right. Okay, in this next one, we let a bluff run amok. It starts by looking down at 7-6 suited in the low jack, folds to us, so I think it's a decent spot to open here. One could say you could fold here and open maybe hijack, or certainly cut off or better with a suited connector like this, but usually these passive tables, I think it's fine. So I open, and it folds to the button who calls, small blind calls, and the big blind decides to call. So now we're going to this pot 4-handed with a medium suited connector. So flop, not really the best for us either. We flop a gutter ball, 10-4-3 rainbow. So I don't know, a lot of people call with 10s. We're 4-handed. I typically don't bluff in these spots, so I decide to check, and it checks through. Turn is the 4 of clubs. Now it checks to us again, and when people check twice, I tend to bet. Most people aren't checking twice. They're really capping themselves there, and the button capped himself by not betting on the flop. So I think this is a good spot to start semi-bluffing, as we do have the gutter ball. So I bet, and only the small blind calls. Now the river is a total brick. We don't get there, and once again the small blind checks to us. We have 7 high. So it's either check back and lose, or maybe we can get a 3 to fold, possibly even like a pair of like 2s or 5s or something like that. So I decide to bet a little bit on the larger side here and bet about 55% pot. Our opponent tanks for a few seconds before check raise, essentially jamming all in, and well, we have nothing left to do but fold. I guess we should have just checked. Oh well, we can't really sulk about it. We're in the very next hand with ace and 9 of clubs, and it folds to us, and even though we're kind of mid-position, it's a good hand to have. So we raise it up to 15 in a straddled pot. It folds around to the big blind, and you may remember the big blind. He's the same villain that was the small blind the hand before. So he makes the call, and the straddler decides to come along for the ride. So now we're headed to the flop, 3-handed. So the flop doesn't really come great for our hand, but it is good again for our range. Comes king 10-7 rainbow, and the straddle checks. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to bet 3-handed against a straddler and just a random button call. So we bet a 3rd pot. The button calls, and the straddler decides to fold. So now we're heads up going to a turn. The turn, we pair our ace. All right, pretty good card for us. But it brings in a straight with the queen jack. That brings in, possibly other 2 pairs with like ace 7. If he had, ace 10 or something like that, we were obviously already beat. So we decide to slow down and check. Our opponent bets 25, pretty small bet. So of course we're going to make the call. And the river brings the deuce of spades, total brick. We check again. Our opponent does the same bet, which is usually a bluff. I probably could have check raised here in all honesty, but I decided just to make the flat call. And it turns out our opponent did indeed turn the straight and was just milking us for $50 on the turn and river. That's unfortunate, but what are you going to do? On to the next hand. All right, we've lost actually a couple of big hands in a row, so we've lost a lot of our stack. We're down to about half a starting stack, and we decide to add on. After losing another couple hands, we think it's a smart idea to change tables, and we look down at pocket jacks on the button in this hand at the new table. And it's a straddled pot. Everybody folds to us, so of course we're going to raise it, and the gentleman in the straddle decides to come along. He just doesn't believe us. The flop, really good for our hand, comes 8-8-3. So it's a paired board, good for us. I don't mind betting in these situations. So once it checks to us, we bet a third pot. Very standard for a paired board like this that doesn't really have much of anything going on. But our jacks do need a little protection from a king, a queen, or an ace-x. So we bet, our opponent calls. The turn brings the 3. Not the best card for us, considering our villain could have a 3 in his hand, right? He did call the flop, so maybe he has some backdoors. Who knows? I think it's a good situation for us to check back, keep his bluffs in on the river, things of that nature. So he checks, and we check back. Now, the river is a total brick. It's the 9 of spades. So he checks, and we decide to go ahead and bet, and we make a very small bet, hoping like an ace-high calls or something like that. And let's listen in and see what happens.
I might call you king high right now.
You have king high?
Yeah.
Jacks.
That's good.
Folded the 8. Oh, good. Woo. Good raise. Hey. I finally played jacks well. I don't know how it happened, but.
All right, just a few hands later, we are in the big blind, and the low jack, that aggressive reg from the last hand, decides to raise. The hijack calls, the button decides to call, and we look down at ace-9 offsuit in the big blind. There is definitely merit for squeezing here. And in regular games, I think a squeeze makes sense. However, in Texas, where if I do squeeze, there's a very good chance I get at least one caller, if not 2 or 3. So I don't want to be out of position multi-way. So I think just calling here makes some sense. I don't think I can really put this in my bluff squeezing, hand range. So I decide to go ahead and call. The flop comes very favorable for our hand. We smash this board with Jack 9-9. Now there is a front door flush draw, and of course there's straight draws out there. So I'm going to go ahead and check raise this. So I check, the low jack checks, the high jack decides to bet 20. So when the button folds, nothing left to do here but raise. Now, we should have gone larger. We only make it $50. That's not very big raise. I don't know why I made it just 50. I was hoping to get a call by a jack, but I think anything's going to call me. A jack's going to call 60, 70. A straight draw, flush draw, they're going to call 60, 70, or maybe even re-raise. So I absolutely can go larger here. I think I missed a lot of value in this scenario by just small raising there, essentially min clicking it back. So our opponent decides to make the call. The turn is really not the best card. It's another jack, and I don't think leading this makes a lot of sense. So I decide to slow down and check. Our opponent, after thinking about it for a little bit, bets $45. Now they could have still a lot of those other hands, right? And be, starting to now line up a bluff here. So of course I'm not going to fold. We have a full house. So I decide to make the call. The river is just a brick. It's a 5 of spades. We check. Our opponent thinks for a little bit before firing 145, about a 60% pot bet. That's a pretty big bet, at these stakes. We're almost 100 big blind bet here, right? $200 would be 100 big blinds. So I think and think and think. I mean, it's my turn to be in the grinder right now, right? This whole episode I've been in the grinder. So I'm tanking. Now, I have played with this guy before. He is a bit of an OMC type. However, he's been in the cash game streets a long time. He's a regular. He knows how to play this game. He certainly could be bluffing here.
I know you're capable, though. That's the thing.
No, I'm capable. That's not to know what I say.
Could he be bluffing about 33% of the time, 25% of the time, 30% of the time, which is roughly what I think I need to make the call here? I think so. So after some deliberation, I make the call. Our opponent turns over. Queen Jack suited. And we lose to a 2-outer on the turn. So after the turn continues just to force choke us all day long today with coolers and bad beats, we decide to just rack it up, call it a day. It's time to move on.
Hi, kids. The word of the day is coolers.
Today's secret word is cool.
So when you hear the word coolers, everybody scream! Ah! Wow, do we take a bunch of bad beats and coolers today, y'all. Disgusting. I ain't building a bankroll with those kind of sessions, that's for damn sure. This speaks volumes to how I should have picked up yesterday when I had that, like when I was up like 1,000 roughly or whatever, that 3-4 buy-in range. Because then this wouldn't have been so bad. It'd be like, I'm close to 6K, I would have been fine. But instead, we're back below 5K. Rough. All right, I'm gonna go home, do some editing, lick my wounds, maybe have some ice cream. I don't know, treat myself a little.
Motherfucker said ice cream,
Dad, it's Hey, all the boys in the car need to get out. Now.
It's been a rough day, y'all. And it's probably windy. I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, don't forget to subscribe, give me that thumbs up, smash the like, leave a comment down below. Blah, 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 all that good stuff. It helps the channel. Really appreciate it. Peace.